Our government is getting its information from the World Health Organization, and the World Health Organization is getting it from in my opinion, a corrupt, industry-funded organisation called the International Committee for Non-Iodising Radiation Protection. It's industry-funded and it's run by 6 self-elected members, and all of their studies are outdated, and our government is entrusting our health to this. I've written to Kevin Foster, our MP, on numerous occasions, and he's replied with the standard party line, just saying that there is no probable cause for concern. But this has been rolled out worldwide, and they're not showing any concern for our health and well-being. So you are going to find out tonight the real truth, and we've got 2 wonderful speakers, John Kitson and Ian Crane. John Kitson has been researching 5G for years, and he is going around the country now doing public speaking, trying to educate people about the concerns and, more importantly, what we can actually do about it. Because it's not all doom and gloom. We can create our own little pockets and join together, and we can stop this. It's been stopped in many countries now. Over half the world is against 5G. There's 350 proper organisations that are against it, and between 80 and 90 countries. And there are lots of pockets in the countries that are saying they want 5G that are resisting. Brussels, for instance, has said no. The Vatican. In the UK, we've now got Glastonbury. Frome was announced today. Stroud's coming up, and also hopefully Totnes soon. So let's get Torquay and Paignton through Torbay Council, and also Brixham through their town council to say no. It's a simple process we have to do, but we need to be educated first, and we need to band together. So if in the interval, if people want to try and join forces, or if they want to come and speak to me, I can try and put you in contact with people more in the local area. That would be most useful. So I will be quiet now, and I will hand you over to John Kitson.
Okay, nice to meet you today. Torquay is where I grew up as a child, so I have a lot of memories here. I was born in London, and I moved here with my mother and father when I was 6 years old. Anybody here live in St Mary Church? Oh. Anybody here know Valerie Thornton, or knew of her? Oh really? Okay, so she was my mother. And yeah, I was a choir boy at St Mary Church for a number of years. So great town. So it's a pleasure, it's an honour to be speaking with you here today. Some of you may know me already. Who knows me from my childhood here? Okay, there you go. Hi, Gemma. Fantastic. So yeah, you know, great to meet all of you. This started when I was in Tokyo, my awareness of this topic, and I had a smart meter that was put outside my flat, and I started to have sleep issues, headaches, and I didn't realise it was the meter at first. I thought it was something else, and I just came across it online by chance that other people were suffering health problems with these, and I moved to another flat which didn't have a smart meter, and I was able to sleep much better. But in this country, while we can say no to a smart meter and we have the option, in Tokyo they're putting them outside the apartments, and people don't seem to have an option there. So it's very different. Now my mother, she started to develop headaches, and this was nothing to do with the smart meter, but I believe it was due to her wireless deck phone. So some of you may have one. Our landline phones used to be wired in. Some people now have these wireless phones, which you can just pick up, walk around with them and speak on them. And I've got quite a number of friends who are getting headaches from using those, or even their mobiles or smartphones. And this is what started to happen with my mother. And at the time I didn't know it was related to the phone, but not long after she got it, you know, she just started to say, you know, getting headaches, and she actually developed a brain tumour, and she had to go into hospital, into Torbay Hospital, and I got a phone call from my sister telling me, you know, Mum's not well, looks like she's got a brain tumour. And she went through, she had a scan, CT scan, and I just started my new job as a headhunter, and I was then given the news that actually my mum only has a few weeks to live. So I immediately came back. I spent as much time as I could, and unfortunately I lost her back in 2014. So since that happened, I just started to do more and more research into this technology, into this wireless technology and the radiation that it's giving off. And then I came across 5G. And I just thought, I don't want anybody else to suffer the same loss that I've had. And I think everybody needs to know about this. And I quit my job, and I'm now doing this full time with Ian. And hopefully we're really raising the awareness in the country. So, 5G, is it safe? That's today's topic. So, I'll just give you some facts on EMF radiation now. EMF stands for electromagnetic frequency, okay? And among those are microwaves. So, I'm not talking about microwave ovens, but it uses the same radiation to heat your food. And some people find that when they've got their phones next to their heads, they feel their head getting a bit hot, or their phone's getting hot, because it's emitting the same radiation. Instead of cooking the food, it's cooking us. It's the same radiation, or also known as RF, radio frequency radiation. So microwave ovens operate at 2.5 gigahertz. That's a microwave oven. Now, 4G goes up to 2.4 gigahertz. So that's what we currently have, with 5G getting rolled out. And so we're currently living in a microwave oven with the door open, and we're being exposed to this radiation all of the time. So there are tens of thousands of peer-reviewed studies showing harm from this radiation, but we just don't hear about it on the news. And there are hundreds upon hundreds of doctors appealing for more awareness and for education being given to hospitals and schools and other institutions about this radiation. So you can find the evidence on the peer-reviewed scientific research on EMF Portal, bioinitiative.org and firemedical.org. So children absorb 60% more of this radiation. Children, their skulls are a lot thinner than adults, and you've also got to look at body size. They're much smaller, therefore they're able to accumulate much more and therefore be affected. And you know, some of you may know that in a lot of schools now, there's rising mental health issues amongst our children. And EMF radiation has been connected with that. A lot of brain diseases, a lot of mental health issues, depression. We've got a lot of suicide now, especially amongst kids. And of course we've got Wi-Fi being blasted at them in a lot of the schools, as well as smart meters. So over the last 20 years we've seen an 80% decline in insects. Insects are even smaller in size. And what's happened to all our flying insects? I remember when I was a child, I used to see so many moths and butterflies and all these different insects, and now I just don't see them anymore. So we're going to talk about smart meters next. So this is Smart Energy GB, and they're basically following the line of Public Health England, and which is a government watchdog, saying, oh, you know, there's nothing to fear about smart meters. The fact that they cause health problems, it's just one big myth, and you know, let's move on. Let's get a smart meter. They're so efficient, they're so smart that you'd be foolish not to get one. And then we have the international appeal. So you have just a few scientists, as Julie said, you know, a small number of these so-called scientists, actually a lot of them don't have a scientific background. I've looked into this, and just saying, oh, you know, there are no problem with the current levels, but yet you have hundreds of scientists that have signed this international appeal, which you can see on emfscientist.org. This is linked to my website, saying, actually, it does cause harm. And they talk about some of the health problems within this appeal: increased cancer risk, cellular stress, DNA damage. Now, DNA is in all living things, so we're talking about trees, insects, animals, humans, plants. All living things are made from DNA. So this radiation attacks and destroys all living things. increase in free radicals, genetic damage, also damage to the reproductive system. So infertility, a lot of people are having problems giving birth nowadays, rising infertility. So there's this very interesting video, Dr. Sarah Starkey, where she's actually looked at the official guidelines that are being promoted by Public Health England and IGNR, and actually looking at the conclusions. And this video shows that a lot of the studies that have been put forward in the conclusions are hand-picked, and they are not looking at the non-thermal effects. They're only looking at the thermal effects of this technology, but it's the non-thermal effects that are important, that are showing the biological damage, the cellular damage. So these are the various things she mentioned, which I've just said. Another thing is that the United Nations, which a lot of us have faith in, actually has a specialized agency called the International Telecommunications Union, whose job it is to promote the interests of the telecommunications industry. So we're seeing a lot of the word that's coming out, basically the UN, the government, saying, oh, you know, no problem, you know, look the other way, don't worry about it, you know, or maybe it's a conspiracy theory. I don't deal with conspiracy theories, I deal with scientific fact, and I've done the research, and the peer-reviewed science proves that this is very, very harmful. There are thousands of studies, and what I would say is do your own research. Don't listen to me tonight, don't believe what I say, do your own research after you hear this presentation with myself and Ian. So they've never responded, the World Health Organization, the UN, never responded to the EMF scientist appeal that was put forward, which I talked about. And we've got this video here where I'm actually demonstrating with this device. This measures microwave radiation, and if I put it on now, these are the levels of radiation we're getting in this room. So this can pick up Wi-Fi, radiation coming from a Wi-Fi router, smart meter, phone masts, phones. And yeah, if you want to get hold of this, you can get it via my site, discounted along with clothing, other things like that. But I think it's extremely useful to have this, just to show to people the actual radiation, where it's coming from. Because what I've done is I've gone to my friend's house, measured their router, and then when they've seen the levels on there, they've actually realized that, okay, these things are actually giving off something. So I think these are very useful indeed. So I'm just going to play this. Now we're trying a wireless router, Wi-Fi router. And look at the radiation coming off of that. Not safe to be around. Let's turn that off. Get the plug. It's gone right down. So now we're going to record the EMF radiation coming from a smart meter. And I'm going to open up the cabinet here. And this is the smart meter. And if you look at this, you've got the digital reading on there, and what it does is every now and then it pulses. So you'll see on the acousticom it will jump up every maybe 20 or 30 seconds like that. This is what the smart meters do. So it doesn't show an extremely high level constantly, but it pulses, so you'll see it jump up to the red again, like that. So going to show a quick video here which looks at the effect on our blood cells of smart meters.
While industry has failed to do any peer-reviewed studies on smart meters and health effects, a growing body of independent research is now starting to accumulate.
In our second set of tests, we're using the smart meter. Before the exposure, we see the same thing as we saw in the first samples. Normal cell walls, fairly separated and looking healthy. So after 2 minutes of exposure in front of the smart meter at about 1 foot away, we see a totally different story. Sample 1, you can see a lot of degradation in the cells. The cell walls have been broken, and you see changes in the cells which are called mycoplasma. It shows a mutation to the cell. In the second sample, we see a different type of degradation to the cell membranes. You can see a corrugation here. This is called bottle cap formation, and it's known that this occurs due to oxidation or exposure to free radicals. So this third subject, when we did her sample, she had to be pulled away from the meter after 45 seconds because she complained about an increasingly severe headache. And here you see a phenomenon called rouleau, where the red blood cells are stacking up, which makes it very difficult for the blood to deliver oxygen to the tissues as they would be their normal function. Every single one of these is a degradation. Every single one of these shows a trauma to the blood cells. And that came from something, and the only variable was the smart meter.
What's going on here? This is a wireless device which is unproven scientifically, which all the evidence so far proves is dangerous or questionable, which should therefore be studied intensely before it's released to the public. Clever people called the technology smart to make it seem intimidating so no one would question it. Some smart ad man came up with that and got paid $300,000 to call it a smart meter so you would feel less knowledgeable, which they know we feel, and then you wouldn't question the smart people putting it in your house. So I call them not smart meters, dangerous meters.
See this documentary, it's linked on my website in the videos section. So I didn't mention my site, it's 5gawareness.com. Some of you may have seen the flyer on the seat. I've also got a YouTube channel, 5G Awareness. So going on to 5G. So 5G basically stands for 5th generation. It's the new generation from 4G. A lot of people just think, oh, it's just one step up, it's faster downloads. Well, it's a lot more than that. It's the IoT, so this stands for the Internet of Things. So everything being connected online. So chips in a lot of our devices, giving off Bluetooth, everything connected with the Internet. And then smart. You might have come across a lot of products now are being called smart. You've got smart homes, smart meters, smart motorways, smart fridges, smart cities, so everything connected. And what this is doing, this is creating a wireless mesh of radiation all around us. So security is another issue with 5G. When something is wireless, it can be hacked much more easily. And a lot of security companies, they'll actually wire in a lot of their internet connections. But do you ever hear about this on TV? You know, watch out if you get this wireless device, it may be hacked into. We don't hear about that. Spying is another problem, and a lot of our devices now have cameras in, like our phones, our computers, even children's toys now. We're getting cameras put into them. And then there are the military applications, such as phased array, which is used at the higher frequencies. So 5G is a whole lot more. It goes right up to about 80, 90 gigahertz. And it's been used for decades in the military. And if you think about it, if you think of a microwave oven when you're cooking your food, how difficult is it to think that that same energy could be used as a focused beam to actually harm something? So I don't have a technical background, by the way, and I don't have a medical background, but what I do is try and compile as much of this important information to share with others. So we're now going to look at the FCC announcement of 5G. Now the FCC stands for Federal Communications Commission, and the ex-chairman Tom Wheeler gave a speech 2 or 3 years ago about 5G. Now the FCC is a US government agency. It regulates all interstate communications such as radio, TV, wires, satellite, phone industry, and international communications. And we're going to hear what he has to say about 5G. It's very interesting.
The big game changer is that 5G will use much higher frequency bands than previously thought viable for mobile broadband and other applications. Such millimeter wave signals have physical properties that are both a limitation and a strength. They tend to travel best in narrow and straight lines, and they do not go through physical objects as well. But brilliant engineers have developed new antennas that can aim and amplify signals. Now, to make this work, the 5G build-out is going to be very infrastructure intensive, requiring massive deployment of small cells. I'm confident that the actions will lead to a cornucopia of unanticipated, innovative uses and will generate tens of billions of dollars in economic activity. And that's damn important. And stay out of the way of technological development. Unlike some countries, we do not believe that we should spend the next couple of years studying what 5G should be or how it should operate. The future has a way of inventing itself. Turning innovators loose is far preferable to expecting committees and regulators to define the future. We won't wait for the standards, and we're not done. As part of our July 14 action, we also plan to ask for comments on opening up other high-frequency bands. Many of the high-frequency bands that we will make available for 5G currently have some satellite users, as well as some Defense Department applications, or at least the possibility of future satellite and defense users. This means sharing will be required between satellite and terrestrial wireless, an issue that is especially relevant in the 28 gigahertz band. But if anyone tells you that they know the details of what 5G is going to become, run the other way. If something can be connected, it will be connected. Hundreds of billions of microchips connected in products from pill bottles to plant waterers. We must reject the notion that the 5G future will be the sole provenance of urban areas. The 5G revolution will touch all corners of our country.
So, Senator Blumenthal, this is one of the most important videos that I've come across on 5G. Now, at the US Senate Commerce, Science and Transportation Committee hearing on the future of 5G wireless technology, Senator Blumenthal asked the wireless industry, have there been any independent health or safety tests done on this technology? And you'll find the answer very interesting.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for having this hearing. We've heard from a lot of witnesses from you today and others previously about the very important potential of 5G technology. It promises to bring us a new era of connectivity with internet speeds as much as 5 times faster than what we have today with much lower latency, and that's all a good thing. But 5G, as you well know, also uses higher frequency waves that don't travel as far and will rely on a network of hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of small cell sites. And the question then is, are there any health implications, any public safety implications to those additional sites that are likely to be located close to homes, schools, workplaces, and closer to the ground. My question for you, particularly Mr. Gillen and Mr. Perry, how much money has the industry committed to supporting additional independent research? I stress independent research. Is that independent research ongoing? Has any been completed? Where can consumers look for it? And we're talking about research on the biological effects of this new technology.
Thank you, Senator. I think, thank you for your focus on the issue. Safety is paramount, and as you alluded to, we rely on the expert agencies, we rely on the findings of the FDA and others as to the requirements to keep all of us safe. There are no industry-backed studies, to my knowledge right now. Happy to visit with you as to what opportunities you think there needs to be more studies, and we're always for more science. We also rely on what the scientists tell us.
So essentially, the answer to my question, how much money? Zero.
I can certainly follow up with you, Senator. To my knowledge, there's no active studies being backed by industry today.
Anybody else know of industry commitments to back research, fund it, support it, to ascertain scientifically the health effect?
Senator, I'm not aware either, but I do know that with small cells especially, you're going to have lower power levels. And of course, as from a carrier perspective, you want to be able to manage interference so that that interference is the lowest interference possible. So I would think that some of those studies or some of that information could be utilized in looking at the health consequences. But no, I'm not aware of any.
So there really is no research ongoing. We're kind of flying blind here so far as health and safety is concerned. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So no independent health or safety tests. So this is experimental technology because it hasn't been through any health or safety tests, and therefore it breaks the Nuremberg Code. So that basically means this is a human rights crime. Our government is rolling this technology out, we are being experimented on, and there are thousands upon thousands of peer-reviewed studies showing that this causes cancer, infertility, DNA damage, etc., etc. It's causing, suicide, and they're rolling it out. And it just really, really shocks me. So next up we've got Sharon Goldberg. Now she's an internal medicine doctor, and this is very interesting what she has to say about 5G.
I'm Sharon Goldberg. I'm an internal medicine physician. I've practiced medicine for 21 years, and my background is mostly academic, internal medicine, hospital-based, clinical research, and medical education. I am going to skip many of the things I wanted to say because I didn't realize it was only 5 minutes. Wireless radiation has biological effects, period. This is no longer a subject for debate when you look at PubMed and the peer-reviewed literature. These effects are seen in all life forms: plants, animals, insects, microbes. In humans, we have clear evidence of cancer now. There is no question. We have evidence of DNA damage, cardiomyopathy, which is the precursor of congestive heart failure, neuropsychiatric effects. So 5G is not a conversation about whether or not these biological effects exist. They clearly do. 5G is a conversation about unsustainable healthcare expenditures. Why do I say this? We've been sitting on the evidence for EMR and chronic disease for decades. And now we are seeing all these epidemics appearing. So diabetes is the first epidemic. I think most of you know the statistics. They're very scary. 1 in 3 American children will become diabetic in their lifetime, and if they're Hispanic females, the number is 1 in 2. Okay. So what does this have to do with wireless radiation? Wireless radiation and other electromagnetic fields, such as magnetic fields and dirty electricity, have been clearly associated with elevated blood sugar and diabetes. That is what the peer-reviewed literature says. It is not opinion.
So here we have a number of the cities where 5G is launched by EE, Vodafone, 3 and O2. And of course 5G is not just going out in the cities, it's going to be all across the country. And as you heard the FCC ex-chairman say, they're going to make sure they cover all rural areas. Okay? So it's coming to Torquay. And of course, if you look up at the street lights, you'll see there's a lot of technology going up all over Torquay. So there's the 5G EU appeal, where doctors have called for a moratorium. Scientists and doctors, many with PhDs, have called for a halt on 5G. This has also got ignored. And then the space appeal. And I would strongly recommend every one of you just print this one out, because there's so much useful, important information in this. It's quite a long document. It's about 10, 12 pages. But very, very important. And it's not just on Earth we're getting bombarded with these frequencies, but of course they're sending out lots of satellites to beam down 5G. So there's no escape from this unless we deal with it. Now, the street lights, the infrastructure is getting changed. Some of you may notice the old sodium lights that we used to have with the yellow light. And they're changing them with these new LED lights. Now, not only does this interfere with circadian rhythm, but blue light is very toxic. And what's happening here, they're installing these first. This is sort of stage 1, if you like. And then they're putting light sensors on top. And then once these light sensors are on, they're able to just switch them very easily over to 5G. They can replace them with antennas or scanners. It's very, very easy, and a lot of them look very different. So they're making it very difficult for us to try and spot them. But I would say as soon as they start changing to these new LEDs, that is an alarm bell, and you need to look and see what is happening around you in your area. So blue light here, this is from a study from the University of Exeter, that it's increased the breast and the prostate cancer, okay? And this is a study from abroad, but yet there are no alarm bells ringing here. We're just installing them absolutely everywhere, so with no concern to health.
Would it help?
So we just do Q&A at the end, if that's okay. Yeah. All right. Radio frequency radiation injures trees around mobile phone base stations. So as I said, trees made up of DNA. And this is harming the trees. So this is another peer-reviewed scientific document you can find on PubMed, which Sharon Goldberg referred to. And here's another peer-reviewed article studying Germany. And you can see the side of the tree here, behind, which is facing the phone mast. The leaves are coming off. It's dying. The tree is dying. And what do we need our trees for? What do they produce that we need? Oxygen. So here's another tree. This is up north in Gateshead, where the street lamp is. The leaves are coming away and the bark is breaking off. Risks to leaves, so the leaves also going brown. Someone shared an image the other day of a bush where there was a smart meter and the bush was going brown, the leaves, the bush is dying. And here's another peer-reviewed scientific referenced article you can look up as well. And then there's also the crest test, where crest was held next to, it was placed next to a wireless router, and the crest didn't grow properly, but the crest held in another room did. And this is Ollie Johansson, who's a doctor, specialises in microwave radiation. He's coming to the UK to give a talk soon. And this is also a very interesting video. There's also the risk to insects and the accumulation of radiation in insects. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got this massive decline now in insects. So how is 5G being pitched? It's being pitched as something that's sustainable, that's going to help us with a low carbon future. So it will help us get rid of the carbon dioxide. We won't have carbon dioxide. we'll have less of it with this new sustainable technology. And of course, they're saying this with everything. This is how they're pitching the LED streetlights, low carbon project delivery unit. And the same with electric vehicles. They're going to cut greenhouse emissions. But what they won't say about electric vehicles is there are about a dozen, 12 to 15 different things within the electric vehicle that give off microwave radiation. And it's not just that, there's also the explosive lithium-ion battery. And Tesla cars have exploded. We just don't hear about this. But the electric vehicles are absolutely toxic. And you're inside a metal container, so it's just bouncing around within the car, you're getting hit, it's hitting you, it's attacking your blood cells. These are much worse than the pollutants from the diesel cars. I'm not saying pollution is not a problem, it is. But these will be constantly connecting with the antennas on the LED streetlights, and you will be being cooked in your car. You will be irradiated in your car. If you don't believe me, look at the scientific peer-reviewed research. It's all out there. So these are absolutely toxic, but they're getting pitched as something that's going to deal with greenhouse gas emissions and CO2, and the same with smart meters, low carbon installations. And of course we never hear that carbon dioxide is actually greening the planet and that greenhouses use CO2 to help their plants grow. It's getting demonized. And again, this is part of the way they're rolling out all of this technology. So this is interesting. South London Council fells dozens of trees before declaring a climate emergency. So you think surely they do the opposite, right? They declare some climate emergency and then start growing lots of trees. But no, they basically want to, you know, what I believe is that they've cut down these trees, then they've measured the CO2 levels, and they've said, okay, you know, we need to now declare a climate emergency, and we better start rolling out all these LED streetlights to deal with the CO2. So it's very sneaky. And then if you actually look at the climate emergency documentation, and I haven't really met anybody who's actually looked this up. You've got people up and down the country clambering for, and I don't think it's a majority, it's a small numbers of groups who are getting a lot of promotion in the mainstream media, saying, look, we've got to have these climate emergencies. Well, let's actually look at what they say, and they're talking about the rollout of electric vehicles and LED streetlights, which will all be connected with 5G. What about we just grow more trees? So Theresa May defies security warnings of ministers in the US to allow Huawei to help build Britain's 5G network. So she's gone against the security advice of, and just allowed a foreign power to install this technology, which can spy on us, which can attack our DNA, which can damage us. And, you know, she's letting a foreign country roll this out. And here's some of the figures that are also responsible. You've got Lord Brown, Andrew Kahn, John Suffolk. We need to start naming names and start talking about who is responsible for this. So, World Wildlife Fund, promoting smart meters. So, you know, you just got to look at the funding. I'm not saying, you know, there are a lot of good people, sure, you know, in charities, but you look at the corporate funding behind the charity. This is extremely important, and a lot of them are compromised, and there's no charity talking about 5G. So Friends of the Earth, again, promoting smart meters. We've got to transition to this low carbon economy, nothing about the health risks. RSPB, they should be looking out for the birds, surely, that are all starting to disappear now, the small birds. And then the UN, this is a document, compendium of solutions for achieving sustainable development goals. And in their documents, they're promoting smart grids, but of course you've got that United Nations Telecommunications Union. So we've really just got to start having some critical thinking skills and questioning these authorities that think they can govern over us. And then Barry Trower. Now Barry Trower's over in Ashburton. He's very local. And I've met him a number of times. Now, he used to be in the Navy, and he specialized in the use of microwave radiation and how it was used as a military weapon, how it was used in the military. It's been used since World War II. It's been used for decades. And I strongly recommend you look into this and how it's being used. And he's also got a background in human physiology and a degree in nuclear and atomic physics. And he's also authored the Tetra Report. So I find him very qualified to talk on 5G and this technology. So I did an interview with him on 5G. I'll just play some of that.
But I've been the go-to person for virtually the world to explain why a weapon, a very successful weapon, which is still used today and in the 5G frequency, why a very successful weapon can also be a domestic, safe instrument for children to use. And of course it can't. And this is the problem. And this is why we are having the brain tumours and the illnesses and the birth defects. This is why all the statistics are coming up. And it's why you are here today. And it is one massive cover-up. If it were one country invading another country with this sort of death rate and suffering rate, it would be classed as genocide, without a shadow of a doubt. I even know some professors that have gone to the World Court to have this registered as genocide and have the industry taken to court. I've given evidence, or sent evidence for that. But you're up against the most powerful industry on the planet, backed by the government because of the money they're getting, and because the secret services have the ability to watch and listen to everybody. So you're in a catch-22 if you're the government. You've got all of this information coming in that you can use to spy on people. You have the tens of billions coming in, but you know it's going to cause more deaths and suffering than lead in petrol and smoking and everything else. But it's worth it. To the government, it is worth it. And they are in a catch-22, and at the moment they prefer the money, which is why your MP will have nothing to do with me. And I've been asked by the people, I've been to Totnes 3 times to give talks.
So, to talk over solutions, what do we do moving forward about this? To hold companies and individuals liable for causing harm. So if you've got a school where there's a headmaster or headmistress, they've signed off on a telephone mast or Wi-Fi in the school, you can sue them. You can take legal action against them. Or if a farmer's had a mast on his field, you can actually take legal action. And he talks about this in the interview with him, in my interview, so I recommend you watch it. You can see a local GP, declare yourself electrosensitive. So that means someone who suffers from Wi-Fi, they become sensitive to it. Now, a lot of people in this room may not be sensitive, but we're accumulating this radiation in our bodies. So eventually we will become sensitive. It's just a matter of time, and more people are becoming sensitive, where they just can't live around electronics anymore. So spread the word about 5G to others. I often mention a video called 5G in 5 minutes on YouTube if I'm at the bus stop or I'm catching them on the bus. I mention it to people, it breaks it down very briefly. There's more videos on my videos page. I've tried to find the best videos, put them together on my site. Get your home hardwired. Insist phone companies turn off your Wi-Fi, so there's a guy who can do that. There's also some literature at the back with more information. And then submit a Freedom of Information request, and Ian's going to talk a little bit more about that. Download your local constitution and attend your local town council meetings. So there's one happening right now. They happen once a month. You have to do this. In Glastonbury and Frome, they've invoked the precautionary principle, which means it will not be installed until there have been sufficient health and safety checks, which of course we know will prove that it's toxic. But attending the local town council meetings is really important. There's an interview I've done with Chris Baker where he explains exactly the process that he's gone through on my YouTube channel. 58% of countries are fighting back. This is the article on my website, Councillors to Propose Opposition to 5G Rollout, and this is my interview with Chris. And then that's my website. So I created this after the Buckfast-Lee event, which I did with Ian a few months ago. It was a great success. We had almost 1,000 people on the live stream, didn't we, Ian? It was really good. And yeah, if anybody wants to support me, they can do so via my PayPal, and that just helps me to get up and down the country talking about this. So next up, that's just stuff about how you can get protection on the website. And then this is a meetup group I started in Totnes, and meetup.com. You can create a meetup group where people can find your group and then connect with you. There's also a local Facebook group, which I think Julie, she's admin of.
Yes.
So that's Torbay, Stop Smart Meters and 5G. And this is a protest demonstration we did in Totnes to raise awareness of 5G. And that is the end. I think I've got a few more minutes. But recently, one thing I did, and one thing you can also do, there are 5G events which the industry come to in various parts of the country. There was one in London called 5G in Action, and there was one called, 5G in Action was in Bournemouth, and there was 5G World, which was in London. And I went along, and of course I suited up because everybody else was dressing smartly, and then I just waited for the Q&A, and I said, excuse me, I'd just like to ask what health and safety tests have been conducted on this technology, because there haven't been any health or safety tests. Hundreds of doctors and scientists are appealing and being ignored for a halt to 5G. And I'd like to know about the health consequences of this technology. You know, I just said it in a calm way, and I stated that you've got people like Barry Trower, who've worked in the Navy, specialise in this technology, who have called it genocide, and has sought to bring about charges in an international court. And I'd really like to hear your perspective. And I was dismissed. And then when I started to talk about how Glastonbury and Frome are moving to stop 5G, I was then eventually physically taken out of the room. But I said what I had to say, and I think every single one of us in here have to take action moving forward, because we don't have time. This is getting rolled out this year, and in 2020 it's already up north in parts of the country, and the infrastructure is just getting rolled out. So we have to take action, but there are good things happening with Brussels and Rome banning 5G, and then recently in Glastonbury and Frome, and we have to stick together, and we need to form local action groups in our towns, in our cities, in our villages, come together, and it's about local community action. And let's do our best to stop this toxic technology. Thank you very much.